Hi, my name is Britt Farley, and this is.
My name is Kevin Misama, and we're gonna be doing the instruction presentations today. We're gonna be talking about installing the NX client on Windows.
Next slide. So this is going to benefit the students enrolled in the CSEE, the Computer Science Electrical Engineering Department. And the purpose of NX Client is so that you can access the Linux lab as a virtual machine. So when the Linux lab is closed, or if there's a test going on, or any other circumstance or inconvenience, a student will be able to access and be able to work on his or her assignments that are due. And another method besides the virtual machine of NX Client is the use of PuTTY. And we will not be talking about PuTTY in this instruction. Next slide.
For this project, you're gonna be needing the following materials. You're gonna need an internet connection. You're gonna need 14.4 megabytes of free disk space. You have to be currently enrolled into computer science electrical engineering program, also a computer science with access to the Linux lab. You need your BYU-I account. Also, you will need a personal computer, Windows OS, and you will need the IP address of Linux that is going to be required for you to enter it in one of the steps as you are setting it up in your computer. You are also going to need the port address of Linux Lab, which is going to be 215. And you have to be careful with these addresses because if you were to enter a wrong number or you were to skip one, it won't work at all in your computer. Also, a very key part of this installation is going to be the private key to access the Linux Lab. And this is going to be found in the BYU Idaho website, or it's going to be also provided in our document for this presentation that is going to be attached to the box in the iLearn. Next slide.
So the first process of getting NX Client is downloading the software. And so what you'll need to do is go to google.com or some search engine, and you'll have to type in NX Client 3.5. And as you search that, you'll have various websites posting NX Client, but the one you'll want to click on, which it says on the slide, is NX Client for Windows 3.5 download. Then it says free nxclient.exe. You want to click on this one. This is specific because there's other sites that may have spam, and this is a trusted website that we found that works for installing NX Client 3.5 on your computer. Next slide.
Continuing with the downloading of the files, you're going to have an automatic download pop out in your computer. If it doesn't, you will have to go in your settings and allow them to pop out so you can see this file downloaded in your computer. Also, you can change the destination where you want to save these files in your computer and where you wanted to be storing all the data. Next slide.
So after you've downloaded NX Client on your computer, the next process is installing the software. And so what you'll do is you'll open the downloaded .exe file, and you'll have a window from the firewall, Windows Firewall, asking for permission to access the software. And with this welcome to NX Client for Windows Setup Wizard window, you'll need to click accept so that the process can continue and you can install the software. Next slide.
All right, sorry about that. The next step will require you to enter the directory where you wanted to save the software. The name of the file is going to be C semicolon program files. In parentheses is going to be x86. next NX client. It's just gonna be a default directory to be safe in your computer. You can save it in this directory. It won't be there won't be a problem with it. But also, if you decided later to change it, you can go back before you finish the setup process. You can go back and change it. And after the files are installed, you will be able to access the setup wizard. Next slide.
So the next step after installation is the setup wizard. Now, when you go into this, it's going to ask you what you want to name your session, and this is for each time you log on. And so what you can name it, we put on the slide, is Austin 212. And you can name it whatever you'd like, but referring to Austin 212 is the Linux lab area, and so that's a default name you could put. And as one of the IP addresses for the host numbers, you'll have to put in one of these 157.201.194.2 something numbers. And we've put a couple of the examples of 202 and 204, but there are various other examples that are found within the document. And the port that we use is port 215. And all these are very critical for logging on. And another important point is that your internet connection is ADSL. Next slide.
A login screen will appear after you enter those IP addresses. And it's going to be asking you for your login username, which is going to be your BYU Idaho login username. And also it's going to ask you for a password. You can, if this is the first time that you're going to be entering or accessing to the Linux lab with the NX client, it's going to be a default password provided in the Linux lab. Or if you're just going to continue working into it, it's going to be the last password that you entered. And also it's going to ask you for the session. As Britt has talked before, it's very important that you have this session and this IP address is safe, so you don't have any problems accessing the next time that you wanted to work on it. And the very first time that you're going to log into the this software, you're going to have to be changing that private key. And this is very important to change because if not, the NX client, it won't work in your computer for the setup that the school has. And we're providing this private key into the document, as well as you can find it in the BYU Idaho website. And make sure that is the the up-to-date private key. And if it's not working, you will have to look into this. One of the first things to make sure that you have the right one. Next slide.
So when it comes to troubleshooting with NX client, there are a couple things that stand out. One is NX client 4.0 versus 3.5. We are using an older NX client, and the reason is because the newer version will not work with what the school has set up, and you will not be able to access the Linux lab. And that's one of the reasons why we had to go to a trusted website, a third party, to download the software, because NO Machine, which was the old NX client, doesn't offer that download anymore. And so Kevin talked about this a little bit. If the key is not working for the private key to access the Linux lab, there are a couple of methods you can do. If you're an online student, you can email your professor and ask for the online key, or you can look in your course materials. Sometimes in the materials, you'll have a link for useful links to find it. And if you're on campus, you can visit the instructor in person, or you can visit the Linux lab and talk to the lab assistant to obtain that key. Also, with NX running slow, it is important that you have a good internet connection. 10 megabits per second or higher would be optimal for running the software. And if it's still running slow, make sure you can restart your computer, or you can close it out and open it up again. And so, next slide.
Even though we have repeated several times, make sure that you have the right key, the private key. It will be very important to put in the key the right key into it, because if not, it won't work. And we have had troubles with students complaining about this, coming to the Linux lab asking for help. And one of the problems is that they didn't have the right key, or they didn't change it, or they didn't even save it. So just make sure to delete the old private key that is given to you as a default, and save the new private key. Also, as I said it before, if your password is not working, you have to make sure that you are currently enrolled into one of the CS classes, so you can have access to the Linux lab. And if not, you can email actually one of your professors or one of the teachers in the CSE department to give you access to it. I would recommend to just go directly to Brother Jones, who is in charge of these permissions for the Linux lab. Also, if the NX client cannot connect to the Linux lab, as Britt said before, double check your internet connection, and again, double check your private key. It is very important to do that.
Thanks for listening to our instruction. NX Client is awesome. It's helped me out many times when I've been up late trying to finish programming assignments, and has probably saved my grade.
Yeah, definitely. Even though the PuTTY software is very helpful, the NX Client, one of the things I liked about it is that it was pretty much kind of like working into the Linux lab, and I had the same display window, and it was more helpful to be able to visualize every single tool that I had for the Linux lab, rather than PuTTY, that is just pretty much you just write the code and it's just one window thing, and you just have to figure out like things like that. Even though that is not hard, it's just convenient to have NX Client in your computer, and it will run smoothly if you follow all the steps that we have talked about today, and if you have the private key correctly. So thank you very much for listening, and it will be until next time.